My first like real memory was my dad pushing me into waves when I was like, I think I was like 7. He actually surfed when he was young.
Okay.
Sold like his last board probably in like the late 70s, 77, 78.
Wow.
To a friend's brother, and he when I like kind of expressed interest that I wanted to start surfing, he called the guy and was like, "Hey, do you have that board still?" And luckily enough, he did.
Wow, that's awesome.
And lucky enough, it was a really cool board. So I guess I really started surfing it like, I guess I got that first surfboard the Christmas, it was right before I turned 9.
Okay.
And then once I got it, it was it. You know what I mean? Every day I was like, come on, we need to go to the beach. There's waves. I want to go. And I think I was 14 or 15 when I first went to Hawaii. The more I got to
we'll
travel,
keep talking about that.
the more I wanted to travel. The more I was like, I don't want to travel to contest. I saw some Ryan Lovelace boards, and I was like, whoa, like these things are speaking to me. I really wanted a longboard because like I never had like a really proper longboard as a kid because I was the shortboarder. I was like, oh, longboarding, that's for all guys, you know. I think you take those like lucky moments and you recognize them and then build on them, you know. And that's where hard work trumps that, you know what I mean? So you see the luck you had, and then you need to figure out, all right, so this was a really great thing. How do I like take my efforts and use that to build to the next kind of thing? And I think that's kind of life, man. I think it's like recognizing those lucky experiences and being able
magical
to
moments.
the magic moments.
But there's still a lot of work, and you need to get on it.
Mick Mackey's classic for he's like a super smart guy. Smart, like by no means like book smart man. You know what I mean? Like he's not super well educated. He never went to college, but he's one of the wisest like older surfer shapers I've ever met. Like I feel like every time he's been to New Jersey, like he tells you about life, and he talks about peak moments, right? And that's what life is. It's that like the ebb and flow from peak to peak to peak. And I think you take those peak moments and then you ride that wave, you know. No pun
Hello everybody, my name is Ricky Muñiz. Welcome to another episode of El Viaje, where I have the pleasure of the company of Phil Browne, my good friend from New Jersey. And like Phil, I would like to start talking with you about what's your first memory in surfing all around.
I guess probably like, well, I can say it's standing up on a boogie board, which is like, I think most of us have started really young, probably.
That's a very common memory among surfers.
But my first like real memory was my dad pushing me into waves when I was like, I think I was like 7. He actually surfed when he was young.
Okay.
Sold like his last board probably in like the late 70s, 77, 78.
Wow.
To a friend's brother, and he when I like kind of expressed interest that I wanted to start surfing, he called the guy and was like, "Hey, do you have that board still?" And luckily enough, he did.
Wow, that's awesome.
And lucky enough, it was a really cool board. It was a 7.6 Con Blue Morphus like butterfly model.
Yeah, that's like legit.
Which was kind of like the most radical of like transitional era boards. It was wide point back. It was really foiled. It was like really crazy, like kind of like where surfboards may have gone if the Australians won and the Hawaiians didn't, kind of thing. So yeah, he took us to the beach in La Valette, New Jersey, which is where I had some family that lived there, which is like about 15 minutes from our house.
Okay.
And started pushing us into waves. Myself and my older brother. My older brother wasn't that into it. I like immediately was like super into it. But oddly enough, I ended up breaking that board because he pretty much pushed me straight into a short break wave, and I didn't want to jump off.
Yeah, New Jersey waves are not a joke.
So I went straight into the beach and just like kook slam style, like full catapulted, and like buckled the nose of the board, which was super sad. I mean, we still rode it for years, but Yeah, it was kind of wild. First
Yeah,
time you
that's-
surf,
that-
you break something.
Yeah, that you got that lesson early on, very early on.
And then, so then that Christmas, my parents bought me a used board. LIR. It was this guy, Mark O'Neill. He was like a local shaper out of Jersey. He did a lot of windsurfers and stuff in the 80s and early 90s.
And was this board like mid-length or was it more short board?
No, it was pretty rad. I kind of wish I still had it. It was like a pintail, really flat decked, like proper 80s thruster.
Nice. Awesome.
6'3", I think it was. It's cool.
Lasted along? Not the first time you broke it?
Yeah, I didn't break that one. No, totally. I ended up, I think,
That's
selling it because I wanted something smaller and kind of to progress. But it was one of the, you always should have saved your first board kind of thing, and I wish I had.
And how? Okay, so that's your early experiences in surfing, like through your family, and I imagine then through friends and like your cousins and all that stuff.
Totally.
But then, like, how did that turn into your career as competitive surfer? When did you start? Very early on, or?
Yeah, so I guess I really started surfing at like, I guess I got that first surfboard, the Christmas. It was right before I turned 9.
Okay.
And then once I got it, it was it. You know what I mean? Every day I was like, come on, we need to go to the beach. There's waves. I want to go. And obviously way before like Surfline or any swell forecasting.
And who were your partners at that stage?
My older brother, probably for
Nice.
the most part, when we were really young. And then I just surfed by myself a lot. Like I had some cousins that lived in this beach town that wasn't so far from my house. So my parents, mostly my mom, or my dad, I was really lucky because my father was a firefighter.
Okay.
So he worked 24-hour shifts and had 72 hours off. So he had a lot of time to kind of like cart me around to the beach. So he took us to the beach anytime there was waves, or just even if there wasn't waves. When you're 8, it doesn't really matter. 9. And then I first did my first contest at 12 years old.
Okay.
Manahuni division. I think I got 3rd.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, nice.
And it was like real waves. I remember the first contest I did was.
By chance, do you remember at what location, what
It
local
was in.
beach was?
I wanted. It was either Bradley Beach or Belmar, New Jersey. I can't remember the two,
Wow.
but it was like they had contests there all the time. And I remember at the time I probably thought it was 6 foot. It was probably like 3 foot.
Yeah,
but it was
at
like
that stage, like each day, it's like the
Yeah.
best day, the best wave of your life. It's
it was
crazy.
sick. It was really fun. And then that was kind of it from then on. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I was like, not the last of that generation, but towards the end of that super heavy competition-based generation. You know what I mean? So after the first contest, it was like I did every contest, every season from 12 to, I guess about 17, 18.
Okay.
Through ESA, NSSA, went out to like USSF nationals and NSA nationals and all that kind of stuff. It was cool,
Yeah. Yeah, fun. If you had the way to get around, I imagine through your dad and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
You were like really surfing all around and more friends, more people.
Totally, yeah. And then we had like a pretty rad crew of guys from New Jersey that were like,
Yeah, before going on,
Legit.
I want to touch into that. Like, I know there's a big community of surfing in New Jersey and on the East Coast since early on, board builders and all that stuff. Like, who were the surfers that you would look up to at that stage?
so like older guys.
Yeah.
There's a guy, Greg Masenko, Grog, they called him.
Okay.
He was like a surf shop owner from the 70s, I guess through the 90s, and then he had some kind of, the shop went away for a while. And then he reopened a shop, like a Billabong store, like probably in the late 2000s or something like that. But he was kind of the dude back then. He had the relationships with all like Hawaii guys, California shapers and stuff like that. So they were always used to come out to Jersey, and he ran a couple pro contests. There's like a really good controversial one that happened in the 70s where it was like Sean Thompson came and David Nueva and all these like big guys.
Wow.
And when it was time to get paid, all the prize money disappeared. So it was like this super gnarly thing. Like everyone went to cash their checks, and everything just bounced, and it was kind of a trip. But it was like
But the contest ran and it was successful as a contest.
It was like the early like heydays of like New Jersey surfing. And that's when the tour was like, it wasn't the dream tour. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was really for the love of it and like for pushing it.
So he was rad. He was like a really good surfer. I remember like even like I'm thinking he's old. I'm almost 40 at this point. He was probably like 45, and I remember surfing with him and him getting like super shacked, and I would be like, whoa, man, when I'm that age, I hope I can still do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it was like
awesome.
not an old guy, but when you're 15, you think he's an old guy.
Yeah, it's always depending on the context. They're like, how
Fully.
old are you? Like 25-year-olds are old, like, and 40 years are like, yeah, well, dude, that's.
And then there was a bunch of like kind of slightly older guys, like this guy Justin Sido was a really good surfer, and there was all these kind of like pseudo pros. I mean, like not even pseudo pros. Dino Dazzo was like sick. He was the first Jersey surfer to ever make the CT, which was really cool. And then the guys just older than me, like Sam Hammer. We were pretty good friends when we were young, and obviously like
He was closer generation to you.
He's like 2 years older than me.
Nice.
So just kind of out of the divisions I would surf in typically, but to this day probably still the best, if not one of the best, if not the best guys to ever come out of
he
Jersey
was on
surf-wise.
one of those recent invitational contests. Like he's still in the.
He still surfs
in the
professionally. Yeah, he still gets paid to
that's
surf,
awesome.
and he runs a surf camp and does a bunch of cool stuff.
That's nice.
Yeah, so the more I got into it, the more I started hanging out with him, and there was this guy Mike Garino, and like we used to travel together a bit and go to contests. And
Yeah, because you then did you start traveling to contests like in between like before the 18 years or?
yeah, for sure. Probably like, I think I was 14 or 15 when I first went to Hawaii for, it was actually in the summertime for like, so ESA was part of the USSF, the United States Surfing Federation.
Okay.
At the time, and they would do like a nationals contest every year, and it was kind of move around. One year was just like California, one year was here, one year was there, but the 1 year was in Hawaii. So that was probably the first like real travel I did for a contest.
Nice.
I'd done Easterns down in North Carolina and stuff like that, but that was like
Yeah, you
legit
went to
trip.
Hawaii, like the mecca of surfing
Yeah.
in the world, like that's awesome.
And then I guess by the time I was like 16 or 17, my parents let the line out a little bit, and then I would travel so if I was 16 or 15 or 16, all these guys I was traveling with were like they were 2 years older than me, so they were 17 and 18.
Okay, so you were the grom in between the crew.
Yeah, which I paid for dearly. You know what I mean? I was like, I can hang out with these older
Part
guys.
of it.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
So yeah, we traveled with those guys quite a bit. Go to like Easterns and kind of all over. And then the day after I graduated high school, I left and went to California for like the summer, and then had like a proper like 2.5 years of like real travel.
Like doing like a circuit of competition.
A little
and
bit of
surfing.
contests, but more just surfing. Like I
Surfing,
went
nice.
like it was like California, and then we did all these there's all this like series of contests in like late August, September on the East Coast, and we did all those, and then went to Barbados for a contest, and then went to Hawaii for the winter, and then came back and went to Barbados again, and kind of cruised around. But it was kind of at that time I realized, I think like around 19 years old, that the contest thing just wasn't really for me.
Like you lost interest in
I
that.
lost interest. I really didn't have the skill set for it. You know what I mean? Like, and I didn't have that like. I think competition is like. It's difficult, man. It's heavy. It's really like.
It's hard work.
Draining on your mind. You know. And I didn't want to do it. I didn't think it was fun. I thought it was nerve-wracking. I thought it was like work. You know. And I think nowadays it's really cool for the young guys because they don't have to. You don't want to do contests like they don't mean nothing. But if you're not on like, if you're a B, C grade pro surfer, I don't think any of your sponsors really expect you to do contests. You might do them on the side to try to make a little bit of money, but with social media and with like edits and we were at the my generation's probably the beginning of like the photo free surfer guy. You know what I mean? Where you didn't have to like do contests, but that's almost gone at this point. You know what I mean? It's web clips and it's social media and it's all that other stuff.
It's building a team of friends that you can create original content and be consistent at that.
And you don't have to be the best guy, but if you make it interesting and you're a good surfer, then you can make a serious career out of it, which is kind of rad. Like I wish. I don't know. I wonder how different my life would have been if that existed when I was younger. Maybe not.
Definitely, like, well, you lost interest of the part of competitive surfing, but competitive surfing was what brought you to travel around the world and planted that seed and that caught your interest more afterwards in your life.
Yeah, the more I got to travel,
we'll keep talking about that.
The more I wanted to travel. The more I was like, I don't want to travel to contests. I want to go, like, I went to Peru by myself for a month. Because I was like, had a little bit of money from working, and I was like, oh yeah, like,
I like this.
No photographer, no nothing. I'm just gonna go by myself, and I'm gonna go kind of get away and surf really good waves, and it was insane.
And know the culture a little bit, like, because if you go for a week, it's not the same like if you go for a month. I know you spend a lot of time also in Barbados.
Yeah.
Since early, you started coming with your family to Puerto Rico a few times.
Fully.
So you got to really experience a little bit of everything and surf really challenging waves and soft waves and cold water, which is something that not everybody experiences. Like.
Yeah, I think that's like in some ways like. I thought someone. A good friend of mine, this guy Simon Murdoch, he went to the Mentawise with us this year. He's like one of Ryan Lovelace's like pseudo kind of team guys. He posted a thing on social media recently that was like, it was trying to like describe his relationship with surfing.
Okay.
And it was like, it's like a love-hate kind of thing sometimes. You know what I mean? I love surfing to death, but maybe I don't always want to surf.
Yeah.
And it was kind of weird because I struggle with that sometimes, you know, and I think you probably do too.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
a very interesting and an important topic that you need to accept,
I
the fact.
Yeah, and I feel like I almost give myself a guilt trip on it sometimes because I'm just like, oh, there's waves. Like, why am I pumped to go surfing? You know what I mean? And I think traveling, kind of back to the travel thing, traveling to like really unique and interesting places, that's kind of sick because it
injects you like some new energy about like really getting excited of surfing again.
If the culture's really cool and stuff too, like, don't go surf for a day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Go check out this really cool, like go on a hike. Go hike to the top of this mountain of some place you've never been, or go into the city and eat really crazy food you've never had. Like, I think that's what traveling is kind of like, that's what I learned early on.
Yeah.
That was like,
that was smart and important because then like it really opened you to travel to like exotic places.
Yeah.
Because if not, you keep going to places to like Hawaii, and it becomes repetitive. But that's one of the things that you haven't, like, you've been to Morocco. We went 3 years ago to Sri Lanka, which weren't like waves of consequence, but it's completely different. And we surf half of the day. The other half of the days we cruise around. We saw the temples. We did super long hikes, motorcycle experiences, life or death. A little bit of everything. And I think that's like what becomes really special about what surfing brings us, all of us. Like,
totally. Especially I think
we get to travel.
The older I get, the more I'm just like, you know, if it's pumping, of course I want to be out. But like, if it's chest high and on shore, like, I'll surf for an hour and then go do something cool. You know what I mean? Have a bit different
back
experience.
to what you said about like that, being able to accept the fact that sometimes you're really into it and you're more excited and you're everyday surfing. Sometimes you don't need to give yourself a guilt trip if you're not excited or you don't want to go that day. That is very important, and I've tried to like find alternative activities like climbing, video making, and creating content, and this has been like other options to like keep engaged with what I like, but like inject myself with energy of like a different kind of feeling.
And it's weird too because I feel like I try to like wrap my head around it, like try to understand why I feel like that sometimes. Because like I think as surfers we're like programmed to be like, this is like, we are surfers, this is what we do, we go surfing. But sometimes I don't know, I can't wrap my head around it. I can't figure it out.
As individuals, we're constantly evolving, and as surfers, it's like an artist. You're creative, and if repetition won't be enough sometimes.
Totally, and I think that's what I've kind of come down to. Like I get bored pretty quick. So I think we can talk further in this later, but like I ride a lot of different surfboards. Because if it's waist high or chest high even, like enough to be fun, and I'm riding the same surfboard every day, it's so monotonous, and it's fun and it's cool, but when you can't push through a turn any harder and you can't put blast out the top any harder, like sometimes you're just like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to do the same turn over and over. So let me go from riding a 5.2 fish to today I rode a 9.6 Parmenter Gone that's made for Tres Palmas, but like rode it in like shoulder high waves, and it was sick. It was cool. It was interesting. It was weird.
I think that's a very important topic that I think we'll come back to it a little bit later, because I would like to come back. So you're 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
You're at this point riding consistently the same board, I imagine.
Shortboards.
Because you were still halfway focused on competition.
Yeah.
You were traveling looking for waves of consequence, which most of the time the shortboard is one of the right options for that,
course, yeah.
which is a good thing to keep in mind. But then like, at what point did you so I imagine always you wanted to live through surfing. It became a dream of yours.
Of course.
At what point did it turn into a surf shop? Because you're like a surf shop now. You're half glide. Like I know in between that process you had a 9-to-5 work in the city, craziness. How did that started becoming like what it's now, Glide Surf Company?
So I think when I realized that there was no way of me having any kind of real career surfing and making money at it, it just changed my outlook on a lot of things. You know, I took 2.5 years off before going to college because I was expected to go to college, you know?
Okay.
And I was pretty burnt out on the whole surfing thing just in general. You know, I was sick of like having to try to call a photographer if there was waves or kind of do that whole thing. So I kind of quit, like almost cold turkey. Not really, but kind of, you know, like
it's that. I played soccer all my life. And I really got a little bit burned out, and I played until college.
Yeah.
And there's a point that I didn't stop playing, but like as a sport, yes, I started just playing with my friends. Surfing took over.
Yeah.
And I just shifted into that. So that's like something that
fully
happens.
So I decided I wanted to go to school. I went to community college for like 1.5 years, and during that time I was still surfing like every day, like consistently. And then I wanted to go to a city. I was kind of over like being at the beach. I had never lived in a city, and I thought it'd be kind of fun. So I went to college in Boston for 3 years.
Nice.
Which is cool. Really didn't surf. I didn't surf at all when I was up there.
Wow. So it was like a extreme transition.
Yeah. I kind of took the Jerry Lopez thing a little bit. I snowboarded like twice a week. I had season passes, and I would schedule my classes to make sure I can get to the mountains. And I think that was like a pretty good like.
You got a breather.
Yeah, and it was a new thing. It was like surfing but not really surfing. And then I would come home for the summer, and I'd live at the beach and surf all summer, and like you know, and I feel like I lost much, you know. It took me a week to get my timing back a little bit, but I was like straight back at it, and I was like, oh, this is like, I can do this. So then after school, I got a job in New York City, worked in kind of menswear, like fashion, for about 1.5 years, and just decided that the New York City hustle just wasn't really what I wanted it to be. It was fun, and it was cool, and it was wild, but I went to I remember like the distinct moment when I realized I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. Maybe this isn't my life. There was a snowstorm, and we had like a big trade show the next day, and I ended up staying at my my boss's apartment, and they were like in their 40s, super cool, really in that world, extremely successful, and they like had this really great rad apartment, and they had nothing. Like they owned nothing. There was like they had like minimal furniture, no food in the fridge. It was like it was weird, and I was like, do I want to be in my mid-40s and like just really not have anything to show for it? Like, you know, work 7 days a week and just be like this? And I was like, nah, this is not the world I want to be in. It was a bit too glamorous maybe for me. So then I found myself, you know, out of school with a marketing degree or business degree with concentration marketing. And I was like, oh, what do I do now, you know? So a friend of mine had an ad agency down in Baltimore, another city, not on the beach. She was like, move down, I got a position for you, and that lasted just a short time. She didn't really have a position, she was creating a position for me. But then I ended up getting a job at like a top 10 independent ad agency, which was wild. It was a full corporate environment. Because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. You know, you go to school, you get a business degree, you get a 9-to-5 job, and
not to say that it's easy, but it's an easier route because you just apply. You don't have to create this project out of nowhere.
Totally.
In a sense, so.
And that lasted a couple of years, and then in 2009, when the economy like just totally crashed, they did like a full house cleaning. Like pretty much everyone, they kept like the low end people that they liked, and they kept the high end people that they needed, and the whole middle of the company just was like, I think there was like 40 people laid off the day I got laid off.
Wow.
Which was the best blessing of my life. You know what I mean? I was like, I was upset for a day. I was like, oh man, I've never been fired from a job before. And then like, after like a week, I was like, I hated that job. Thank God, because
they did me the favor. Like,
yeah, because I'm too proud to quit. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like, I probably would have stayed there for way too long.
That's awesome.
You know, would have been way more miserable. So that was like a crazy chapter. And then I got out of that going, all right, now what do? I know I don't want to go back to this ad agency environment. I don't think corporate life is really for me. Fortunately, at the time, the unemployment benefits were really good because so many people got laid off, so it gave me a bit of time to really like figure things out. And I wrote, I don't know, 5 or 6 business plans for all different kinds of business.
Okay.
Because I knew, I think I'm ready to do something for myself.
Because straight out of college is hard. You're like you don't really have no idea what the market is.
No, especially
so
with like
you
a
already had this experience. You hated it.
Yeah.
They did you the favor of like okay, like sorry, and you realize it's a positive. There's
Yeah.
a positive side of
for
it.
sure. It was like one of the best blessings in disguise I've ever had in my life. So then I got to I'd go through this exercise and I'd write these business plans. This was like I was like 28, 29 at the time. And I was like, nah. Like, I'd always get to a point, I'm like, that's not going to work. And I'd write another one, and I was like, I'd find a hole in it. And that was kind of my maybe it's good practice, trying to shoot holes in your own business plan. If you can shoot a hole in it, then, like anyone can kind of thing, right? Because you're the closest to it. So then, I'd worked in surf shops a bunch as a kid. And I told myself, I saw like what my bosses went through, and I was like, I will never open a surf shop in my life. Like, this looks like the worst retail kind of thing to ever go into. And then at the same time, it was kind of when the alternative surfcraft movement really kind of started. This was 2011. And it was like, so I moved out of, backtrack a little bit, moved out of Baltimore, back to like my hometown in New Jersey, like close to the beach. Because I just knew, I was like, I'm kind of done. I want to get back to the beach. Started surfing a lot again. Took like a job at a bike shop that a friend was running, and just to like, so I took a job at a bike shop just to like, it was right on the boardwalk. I looked at the waves every single day, and I was like back. I was like, all right, back to surfing. But I went back, and I was like, I don't want to ride the same surfboards I was riding, because I grew up in the worst time for surfboards in history, probably.
Yeah.
Like, they were the worst banana shoe.
There was no other option.
Yeah. Like, I feel like, I really wonder, like, as a kid, if I rode boards that we, like, even like the short boards we ride now, how much better they would have been. So I had a couple of short boards still, and I got a couple of new boards, and they were cool. But then I just got kind of intrigued by this whole kind of alternative surfcraft thing, because it was like fun and interesting and different and not boring, So I bought, like, the first like kind of cool thing I bought was this Bing like quad called the Synchronizer. It could be like a Bonzer or a quad.
Which one, yeah.
And that thing was like really rad. And then I saw some Ryan Lovelace boards, and I was like, whoa, like these things are speaking to me. And I talked to Ryan for a while. Like,
do you remember which model you saw? It must have been Holes, right? Because
no. So the first one that I saw, so I really wanted a longboard, because
Okay.
like I never had like a really proper longboard as a kid, because I was the shortboarder. I was like, oh, longboarding, that's for all guys, But I got kind of into it, and he did a board called the D-Bowls,
Okay.
which is like this like piggy, really wide, like round tail, bladed, almost like Hully longboard.
Yeah.
It was for sale on like Mollus's website, I think, and I was like, whoa, like that thing's insane. Like that looks like something I'd be into. So I like sent Ryan an email, and he was all like, he was really young at the time, like pretty early on in his career, and he was like, oh yeah, cool man, yeah, I'll make you a board, sure.
Awesome.
And then at the same time, I was like on one of like the New York surf forums or something like that, and I see one of Ryan's boards for sale. It's like a Mini Simmons, and it was like cheap for what it was. I think it was $450, and it was like brand new. The guy wrote it once, told Ryan some crap that he didn't think the craftsmanship was up to the standard it should be or something. So I bought that and a big longboard from a different guy in Long Island on the same day, and that was like my full like 2 feet in. You know what I mean? I pretty much never rode a shortboard again.
At this point, like, what was your influence into this alternative culture? Were there like older dudes surfing in New Jersey this type of boards, or was it all through like social media that was what started coming up?
Full social media and internet-based stuff.
Okay.
There was like...
Yeah, because you guys, you got into it early on. Like,
yeah, there was
early.
no one riding. I mean, there were some guys probably riding some cool longboards, probably some Cooper Fishes and stuff like that. But like outside of like the longboard realm, there was no one riding like really alternative surfboards in Jersey at the time.
Yeah, because it was so out of the norm that they weren't available.
When
I remember at that point looking at consuming sway locks like crazy. That's Ryan did, and like seeing Cooper Fish is coming back, Ryan Chapin, and some other younger people that brought it back little by little early on when you were getting into
Fully, yeah. I mean, I remember like the first time I had the mini sequence was like, my friend still has it. It's still in really good shape, so the craftsmanship was damn good. But it was like a 411 dark green mini Simmons with like Lauson fins that run.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And for the first year I had it, I'd walk up to the beach and everyone would just be like, is that a knee board? Is that a body board? What is that thing? Did you make it yourself? And I was like, no, it's a mini Simmons. And they were like, a what? And like I got like the weirdest looks for it, you know?
But now, you had a blast.
Yeah, it was cool. It was interesting. It was different. It kept like things really lively. So I thought that was like that whole thing was cool. There was Mollusk was in Brooklyn at the time. They were the only shop pretty much on the whole entire East Coast doing like in my mind like these kind of interesting alternative kind of stuff. Yes. But they were Brooklyn and they were at the time really tiny. Like I don't know, a quarter, not even. They were a tenth of the size of like their current like Pilgrim shop. What it kind of like evolved into. So I wrote a business plan for an alternative surf shop. You know, based like on Thalia and Mollusk and Surfy and like a couple of those things.
Beautiful. Yeah, those were like those are still the shops that
super legit.
The super legit, and you position in the long term. So let's keep going.
So I was like, you know, all right, here's your exercise. Find the holes in it. And every time I'd like start, like I tried to find it, and I was like, can't find it. And I was like, well, let me try that again. You know what I mean? Like try to pretty much just like work through it to make sure that there wasn't like I wasn't thinking
doing the numbers wrong or.
And it just always worked for me on paper. I was like, this makes sense. Like it's a market that's that doesn't really exist. It's interesting. It's like there's like quality's important, craftsmanship's important.
And one of the main things is you identified a void.
Yeah,
in the whole East Coast.
It was a niche, you know, and it still kind of is. It's not as much as it was, but yeah. So we started. So the first person I called was Ryan Lovelace, and I was like, yo, like I know we haven't talked in a while, but I'm opening a surf shop. Like, will you sell me boards? And he was like, sure. And that was like our like over the phone handshake. You know what I mean?
10-year friendship or whatever.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So and I brought in some Christian Sins and some of these boards from Florida and some which kind of keep it like interesting the whole time. And from like day one, it was good. It's a struggle. It's a retail stores. Yeah. It's not easy. So we started in May of 2011 in a town called Normandy Beach, which is like kind of like central New Jersey coast.
Okay. It's further south than where you are now.
Yeah, it's probably 15, 20 miles further south than where we are now. Okay. And it was cool. It was like, it's a really, really beautiful seasonal town. Just picturesque, like East Coast beach town.
And the store was close to the shore, right?
We were like a block from the beach.
Okay. It was more of a retail. I didn't know that. I wasn't there, but from what you told me, it was more of a retail, like more brands,
for sure,
more product oriented than what Glide is right now.
Exactly.
Point,
yeah.
Right?
We sold because we were catering to tourists at the same time.
Okay.
So we sold way more apparel. Kept the surfboard thing as like cool and as tight as we can keep it, and always did like the best boards we can do, but you have to make money. So there was like this you sell to the tourists, you bring in more trunks and more women's swimwear and all that kind of stuff.
And beach chairs and umbrellas.
No, we never did any of that.
Okay.
I was super adamant about no beach chairs, no bullshit sunscreen, no beach balls, volleyball. It was always like as core of a surf shop as I could make it.
Cool, that's awesome.
But still make money,
Yeah. So that was May 2011.
Yeah.
When it started. And was that the same year that Hurricane Sandy happened?
No, Sandy hit
2012. September 2012? November.
It was pretty much the last day of October, first day of November 2012.
Yes, I remember. I was in Culebra and it was like Halloween.
Yeah.
Halloween to November 1.
So that was we things were going well. We had 2 full summer seasons under a belt. Like the business is growing. I started building kind of this regional clientele from New York City and stuff because there was it's close enough. And then Hurricane Sandy comes and we were in one of the, you know, they talked about a lot of these different towns, but we were kind of this real small town in the middle of it, and we were in one of the hardest rock zones of the whole place, like of the whole storm. We got really lucky because we were one full block from the beach,
Okay.
and it's a barrier island there, so the islands were quite wide there. So I think we got 45 minutes of like a 4-foot deep like river of water flowing down the street. My landlord stayed. We did the best we could. We sandbagged pretty high. I got probably 6 inches of water in the store. Like, didn't lose really much. Lost some fixtures and stuff like that, but we were like everything was like stacked up and high and fine. But the town was just decimated, man. Like the beachfront houses, there was a road that went right along the beach, and there was like houses on top of houses on top of cars. Literally, like for 6 months, there was like 2 houses that collided and a car underneath it.
Yeah, because for the people here on the island, it's important to share that the building there, it's different. It's like there's like a founding in concrete, and then it's built up from there in wood.
The wood, yeah.
So it's not as here that it's flood, so it's okay. Like, well, the water needs to get out.
Yeah.
Like there, the house just like might break down.
Yeah, the houses literally lifted off of their foundations
crazy.
and plopped on top of other things. There was houses that got damaged a few houses in that would have been fine, except the house in front of them fell off its foundation and knocked their house over.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. So it was complete chaos. So that was what made you guys you needed to get to move from this.
So
town.
that was kind of where we were at. It was like, so we weren't even allowed to get regular access to the store for 3 months probably.
Wow.
You had to go through checkpoints, National Guard run checkpoints. You had to either have a sticker on your car to go the one way, or literally like hand them your driver's license. They would search your vehicle, then you could go on the island to your store or house or whatever it was.
It was in part, I imagine, in part because of the risk of being in that area, but also for looting, which is something that happened, and we can assimilate here in Puerto Rico after the hurricane, that looting came in, and there's a different risk and
For sure.
a different concern in terms of security that on daily life you normally don't even think about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then we were like, all right, so we can stay in Ormond Beach and reopen that, following the next spring and probably die a slow death. You know what I mean? Like, realistically, we knew there was not a chance of being able to come back there for some time. So that's when, I guess, my second blessing in disguise kind of came was we started kind of looking around, and I knew kind of where I wanted to be or where I thought made sense. And I had some friends in Asbury Park who there was a coffee shop down the road that are good friends of mine. This guy shop Cafe Volan, really amazing coffee. There's like a vintage store that makes custom denim, Sweet Joey's, which is across the street. And it's this really cool little like zone in Asbury Park called Banks Avenue. And I was like, well, if we're moving there. Because it was like, it was a whole street of young business owners. Everyone who owned a business was under 40. Like, it was really like alive. Everyone worked together. Everyone knew it wasn't the easiest place, because Asbury had been really kind of rebuilding and turning over. So it wasn't the easiest place to start a business, but it was the coolest place to start a business. So it took us 8 months to find a place. So from 1st of November until
June or July.
Yeah, July 4th weekend the following year, we were just kind of without a home.
Wow.
So we finally got open for July 4th weekend in Asbury Park, and it was honestly, as gnarly as the storm was, it was one of the best things that ever happened. Because even as much as I loved the old shop and I loved where the location was, and I surfed like crazy because I was a block from the beach, the opportunities that have been afforded to us in Asbury Park, with its proximity to New York, and the fact that it's now become like one of the, I think someone rated the top 50 cities to live in the country recently. It's really kind of blown up. It's been like a really awesome move and trip and everything.
It's awesome because those are the people that I know. I've hung out in Cafe Volan. I've hung out with Joey's owner, his sister. It's become a family. And also, you came into this location early on, before, when this community it's starting to come together, right? Because
Fully, yeah.
right now, what I've seen now, it's not the same to when like 4 years ago when I went there the first time.
Yeah, these guys, Sweet Joey's and Cafe Volin were the two like first stores to really open on the street, and they opened just about the same time that I opened in Normandy Beach. They were like about 2 years before us, and I don't know if I would have been able to survive those first 2 years there because it was pretty different, you know.
Yeah.
But I got pretty lucky coming in 2 years later, and they kind of set the groundwork, and then it was just up and up.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so at this point, Glide Surf Company, the shop, right?
Yeah.
Did a little bit of a shift towards more of a curated shop, focus on surfboards, and the approach that, if I don't remember wrong, Ryan and you had a conversation, and like he recommended, like, why don't you start like to cut away some of the struggles of shipping and this and that?
Yeah.
Let's start building it here
Yeah,
in
so
Jersey.
that actually happened when we were still in Normandy Beach.
Ah, really?
So Ryan sent me like 4 boards, I think, to start, because that's all he had. He was kind of in this transition period. And I sold them pretty quick, and I was like, got on the phone, I was like, yo, like, I need more, let's do this. And this was the first summer we were open, I guess.
Okay.
And he was like, well, I've been doing the shaping tour thing. Like, he was going to Europe and Australia, and rather than like shipping boards.
Shape-tastic voyage.
Yeah, the Shape-tastic voyage.
Yeah, I remember.
So he was just like finishing up in Portugal, I think, and he's like, I'll just change my flight and I'll swing back to Jersey. Like, can you get blanks? And I was like, yeah. He's like, can you get me a place to shape? And I was like, sure, yeah, like I'll figure it out. So I found a shaping bay for him and got him some blanks, and had this guy Brian Wynn glass all of them. And I don't remember where we started from the first trip. It was probably like, it was 8 boards, something like that. But like from day one, like from when that happened, I was like, whoa, this is like,
People want this.
yeah, people want his boards and people want this, but it's also like from a businessman perspective, like, this makes sense. I'm cutting out like the added cost of this. I'm cutting out the added cost of this. Like, it lets you really like control all your costs. So, you know, in a typical surf shop, the margins are extremely low on surfboards, and they're still not great, but it lets me like focus. It gave me the opportunity to focus on surfboards. Like, nowadays, like when I tell people what I do, they're like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a surfboard shop. Like, I don't say a surf shop, because I think like the pigeonhole of a surf shop is like you sell Billabong and Quicksilver and like all that, you know, you have like 5,000 pieces of apparel and
You'll cater
50
to,
surfboards, you know what I mean? And I'm trying to do it the opposite. I want 5,000 surfboards and 50, I mean, not this, you know, not the same, but yeah, we want to push way more towards actual like surfboards, like what a surf shop should be.
You've taken the role and like bringing these alternative boards towards the community. In that, you need to take the role of educating people, like what this is, being out there in the water, surfing them, like, so that people start seeing it. So it's an interesting process that, like, here in Puerto Rico, it's been the same. First time I shaped a mini Simmons, everybody was like, whoa, what's this, what's that? But little by little, people have been like adapting to it, because the reality of it that alternative surfboards are more practical for the most of surfers.
There's so many people.
Yeah.
There's so many people, like, the actual percentage of people who should be riding shortboards has to be like 5%.
And basically, whoever is focused on competitive surfing,
Yeah.
or you're surfing really good waves, that
Yeah,
that one day of
Of course, and that's always kind of been my mantra, like the right board for the right wave for the right day kind of thing. But there's so many people that benefit like something a little bit cruisier. Put them on a fish, you know what I mean? Rather than, especially like here, like, are your wilderness, and wilderness is like chest high. You really don't want to be riding a shortboard, but a fish will go really good. You catch a lot more waves, and it'll be a lot cruisier, and you can, you know, have a lot more fun. So I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely way more interesting and fun for all of us. Like,
For sure.
it was needed. Like, so going back to that, the beginnings with Ryan, then you moved to Asbury Park, and in Asbury Park, it becomes now the heavens.
Yeah.
Like, now, not only you're collaborating with a local manufacturer, you set up your shaping room, you set up a glassing room, and you take it on like a full-on.
So Ryan had probably been to Jersey like 6 times at this point, I guess, 5 or 6 times. And I had other glass shops glass all. There was 2 glass shops, and they were good. They did a really great job. But it kind of got to the point that, like, I really like to control things, I guess. And I couldn't control, like, the flow of boards coming out of the shop. I couldn't control the quality. It was hard for me to control even the color stuff. You know, a guy would give me a color chip, and I'd be like, oh, he wants this color, and then they'd mix it up.
Not everybody is as specific as you would be about all these details.
Yeah. So Ryan knowing me and knowing my desire for control, we were having a conversation when he's like, you should open your own glass shop. And I was like, yeah? And he's like, yeah, for sure. Like, I'll shape a bunch of boards, we'll walk through some together, and then, like, just do it. Why not? You want to control this thing, you want things to be turned around quick, you want to make sure the quality's where it is. He wasn't like, we had the same kind of, like, gripes about the shops we were using. Really great guys, just it was hard to be in someone else's environment the whole time. And we were doing enough boards at that time that it was just like, all right, it's time to either deal with it or do it on our own. So I found a space like 2 weeks later, and I called Ryan. I was like, yo, I found a space. We're doing this. And he was like, whoa, I didn't think you were really going to do it. I was kind of joking. And I was like, oh my gosh, like really, like I already like started building the place out.
It's a whole different story, taking on the glassing, like sourcing of materials.
Yeah.
But that's awesome that it was like that.
So fortunately, like, there was a local shaper, John Apito, who does Browne surfboards. We like partnered on the glass shop space. He'd probably shaped in glass like, I don't know exactly, a few hundred at the time. Did a lot of work himself. Knew what he was doing. Like, mostly clear and like didn't do as much color work and stuff like that. But he was like, the expert out of the two of us.
Oh, nice.
And so that was like a bit of like a cushion, So Ryan came, he like right out, we literally were putting the finishing touches on the build out of the glass shop. And he came and shaped 48 boards.
Wow.
In one psycho trip. And he and I probably glassed 3 together, like tag team. Him walking me through the whole process. I probably glassed another 2 or 3 by myself with him looking over my shoulder. And then he was like, well, gotta go back to California. He's like, if you can't figure this out after this batch of 48, like maybe you shouldn't do it anymore. And it was heavy, man. It was stressful. And it wasn't like clears. It wasn't like easy stuff. I mean, it was relatively easy because he was doing a lot of free lap color work at the time.
Ryan's boards already were tint.
Yeah.
They were a bunch of free lap work and like that dirty look.
Yeah.
But it's not the easiest.
The first 6 boards I did were all color, full tint, top and bottom. Yeah. So we figured it out between John and I.
Yeah, I think that was my approach. First board I glassed was full tint. I think I wanted that, so it's like let's start learning through that.
To this day, I stress out way more over clear boards than I do tint boards. Because, like,
agreed.
What if there's a piece of stern in it? And what if there's a hand for, like, a tint board, like, a lot of stuff gets kind of, it doesn't have, like, it's way more precision or more precise in the way that you have to do a lot of things. But there's kind of some beauty in the color, and I find them way more interesting.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so that was it. And we got through it, and it took us a while, and I had a bunch of people probably angry at me because their boards took a month and a half longer than I said they were going to. I learned that lesson pretty good too, like to try, what was it, under promise and over deliver as opposed to over promise and under deliver.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was rad. And then that was like kind of the catalyst to turn the shop into what it is now.
Yeah.
Pretty much a full vertically integrated surfboard shop.
At the heavens, materials get there. You build boards with a team of board builders that has been changing during the times, and you get like the boards that you always wanted in Glide.
For sure, and it's a lot of work, but it lets me kind of like save a little bit of money on the boards and turn them around really quick. Ryan's typical turnaround time on the West Coast is 6 months. He comes to New Jersey, and I could turn around a board in 6 weeks, and people are like, "Whoa, it's so quick!" You know what I mean? It kind of messes up his timing sometimes, but.
Yeah.
But then since that, it kind of was the jumping off point to have so many other people here. Like, you reached out to me, I guess it was It might have been the first year we opened the heavens.
I think it was the first year. I was really into like since the beginning like sway logs and all this stuff, and I think it was like 2014 when my first trip that I did like the whole summer in California.
Yeah.
And I just said like, what do I have to lose? I wrote emails to Ryan, and I had visited him that summer while I was on the trip, and I contacted you, and I wanted to get to that because the beginnings is like this crazy project with Ryan, but it kept evolving into something like, then it was like, oh, okay, I can work with Ricky, you've been also been able to work with Dave Parmenter, which is a super great shaper.
Super. Neil Purchase Jr. He's
Jr.
come twice.
Mick Mackey from Australia, which is extremely radical and a guy that I really look forward to meet him.
Yeah.
And you've created this whole circle of collaboration.
Yeah, it's been really crazy and it's been amazing for everyone. And now
another one that we cannot forget is Angelo.
Oh, the craziest man to ever work
man, but
at the Heavens period.
In the world. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a wild man. One of the most amazing glasses probably on the planet.
Yeah, for sure.
Creatively, yeah, I think you have to be crazy to be as good as he is at it and be as creative as he is at it. It's been a trip. It's been amazing. We've created this like global community of friends and co-workers and surfboard builders, and it's crazy. Like, I feel like, you know, everyone's like, oh, you're in the surfboard industry. Do you know this guy? And I'm like, if I don't know him, they're usually one person removed. Like, you know, the surfboard industry is so tight and it's so small that if you know one person, you know 5,000 people.
It's crazy because I agree exactly with what you're saying, and I'm from Puerto Rico and I'm here, which we are a little bit more disconnected and 5 years behind, or maybe even a little bit more everything. So when I start traveling, and I've visited you, I've collaborated with Angelo and board builders in California through this process and stuff. But one of the trips we made, we shared a trip to a surf expo in California. Yeah. So even being from here, I feel connected to all these people, like people from Belgium, people from Hawaii, people from California,
yeah, it's cool,
New Jersey, and it's been a great help to spread a little bit my work and my passion, like and know that there's a lot of people that took this road, that it's not the easy road. It's like the boards that are harder to build, boards that are harder to sell sometimes in different aspects, and it's been amazing. It's been just like,
it's like, I've heard it referred to as like a cottage industry, which I think is a really good way to put it. It is tiny, it's so small, but it's cool and it's important. You know, it's like the guys are doing it. No one besides Firewire and the guys making boards in China, and they're probably still not even getting rich. No one is getting rich doing this. You do it because you love it, you know? You do it because it's like a really cool lifestyle. Cards full. Okay. Yeah, so it's pretty rad. It's afforded like a lot of really cool opportunities and really great people to meet, and it's fun.
Yeah, one of the, going back to traveling, like, the board building, then it takes you back into like collaborating with all these people, visiting their shops, and now you keep traveling to different places, because I'm sure when you were 20 years old, you wouldn't have gone to Sri Lanka, because those waves maybe wouldn't have called you. Yeah. Like mostly in Sri Lanka, we surf longboards and fishes. Yeah. And maybe a mid-length, but we mostly stayed on the fishes and the longboards. Yeah, I think I rode a fish. I didn't wear a leash for the whole 2 weeks we're there, I remember. I was like, not one day did I need it, and it was like, oh, but it was so good. It was so fun. Yeah, it's super fun. And now that this recent trip you did to the Mentaways with Ryan and some of the crew, it was also, I imagine, full of all sizes of boards. And yeah, we had, so it was a full camera, like film trip. They brought like a red camera. There was a bunch of housings, and we had like, I think 9 Pelican cases, and there was, I think 8 of us on our flight, and there was like 7 board bags with no less than 4 boards per bag in it. It was like I was gonna say 20 boards, and I was gonna stay short. No, yeah, it was like insane. The most crap I've ever traveled with. I was like, wow. And the film guys, they're laughing. They're like, oh, this is just normal. Like when you know, that's what these guys do. They fly all over the world, and they do a lot of commercial projects and stuff. They're like,
this is all we have, Pelican cases. Usually there's like 6 more. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, it was a trip. And
That's awesome.
there was everything from high performance shortboards to I brought a couple ASIMs. There was mid lengths. There was fishes. There was kind of everything. It was cool. It was like we had a couple shots of like the full like sitting in the ocean, the amount of surfboards, and like nothing was the same, and everything was interesting, and it was like.
Yeah,
It was
that's
a trip.
amazing. It's inspiring because that's what it's nice to see what like how surfing turned around, and now that is more normal. That now it's more the norm. Like Surfer Magazine is the handshake
sure.
write up, and now this is becoming like what young surfers.
It's the new normal.
Yeah, it's becoming into that. And
I think surfing's in the best place it's ever been right now.
it's super interesting, super fun for everybody, for
You-
young dudes, ladies, older dudes, for everybody.
And there's such a cool like kind of ride. I think that ride everything mantra is like really like it's real now. Like you can like it's not that weird anymore. You know, like you can paddle out anywhere, and no one's like even like when I first got that Mini Simmons 8 years ago. Like now that's like I remember like fast forward 5 years from when I first got that Mini Simmons. Now everyone's like, oh yeah, Mini Simmons, I got 2 of them. Like it's like the most normal surfboard, and you're like, really? Like it wasn't that normal that long ago.
That it's really cool to see that happen in such a short time. Where, like, even since the time that I met you 4 or 5 years ago, it's kept evolving and it's been becoming more mainstream. And people like Ryan have grown into and representing what hand shaping and the tradition of building a surfboard
Totally.
really represents, like not being being completely transparent on what you do, and like being like this is hand shaped each board to your specifics and no tricks around it.
For sure. And I think that, yeah, that's kind of like a crazy part of the industry right now. And it's kind of weird and it's confusing for consumers and even people in the industry sometimes. They think this guy hand shapes all their surfboards and he doesn't, but they price it as if it is hand shaped.
Now, this project evolved into a collaboration in between, I don't know exactly if it's Ryan and you only, but Trimcraft
Yeah.
turned into a thing, which is a great evolution of what happened, because Ryan has been doing that much, but now through Trimcraft, you've been able to create a work to younger board builders, share these techniques, and spread good designs, hand-shaped,
Yeah,
and like with the complete tradition that it really involves.
So Trimcraft is pretty much this collaborative like surfboard company. Pretty much right now it's myself and Ryan Lovelace are kind of like at the helm running the thing together, where I run all the East Coast distribution and production,
Okay.
help out with the production on the West Coast the best I can, and then he runs a lot of the West Coast kind of stuff. But it's these designs from Jerry Lopez, Rich Pavel, and Ryan Lovelace. 3 like very sought after surfboard shapers. 3 guys that are probably like at the maximum capacity of what they can do surfboard wise, like per year. Pavel's not doing any more surfboards than he was. Jerry's definitely not doing any more surfboards. He wants to do like 60 a year.
And I think it brought back a little bit of energy and wanting him to like,
Oh,
okay,
for
that-
sure,
like-
yeah. So Ryan, Rich, and Jerry come up with these designs, and then under their like tutelage, they're teaching these young, for lack of better terms, we haven't figured out the best way to say it, up and coming shapers.
Yeah.
How to shape their
that's
boards.
a right word, I think.
So it's like a pretty rad opportunity to learn how to hand shape surfboards with really good templates and kind of good direction from these master shapers. It's crazy. And we're paying them a livable wage. We pay them like quite a bit more than your typical big brand would pay them to scrub out like machine shape boards.
There's always stuff that you can adjust, but it's the closest thing to having a balance of like a sustainable industry, like promoting surfer labor, like all these surfers that are into board building, like you can make a living. It doesn't have to be through professional surfing. Like we were talking, it could be a surf shop, it could be content creation, it could be like collaborating with this kind of brand. So that's amazing, and I congratulate you guys because it's great work, and I hope it keeps growing. Now It's in Europe, first Europe
Yeah,
trip,
there's
right?
guys in Europe right now with Nico at Wave Glider Surf Shop, shaping the first batch of like European boards, and it's been good, man. Everyone's been really pumped. You know, they're a couple bucks less than getting them from Ryan or Rich or Jerry, so that's like really kind of a nice thing, especially for
It's
like,
attractive.
especially for like your kind of entry level alternative guy. The guy's been riding shortboards for years, but wants to ride something.
You're making
More
available
interesting.
a legit kind of design.
Doesn't want to spend $1,000. Well, you can get it for $800 and ride something that's really rad and proven. You know,
Yeah.
it's been fun. It's been another whole hat to wear. You know.
Another challenge, another interesting part of it, and because I know you serve some of the the trim craft
Oh
boards
yeah,
also,
they're good, man. I've got a couple.
That's a cool new element of glide growing and Ryan glowing.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. So now to start closing up, I want to make you two questions.
Yeah.
Like yesterday we were talking and we've heard a little bit of all the background, like from first trip where you did maybe, or first relationship with Ryan where you did 8 boards, starting the shop, to building hundreds of boards a year in the heavens.
Yeah.
We were talking yesterday about one thing, like what in the success, right, or the journey of glide.
Yeah.
What would you like? How much would you attribute this because you've really worked hard to hard work, or luck, right? Which is like, it's like a tricky thing, but
It
we
is.
talked about it yesterday, but I just wanted to bring it up because, dude, with just on my point of view, there's a lot of hard work involved, but there was an element of timing. So I want to see your point of view.
Yeah. I guess I don't really love the word luck. You know, like I'm as lucky as could be, man. I am blessed day in and day out. But I think when you work really hard at things, the universe provides. You know what I mean? Like the harder you work at something, and like the more you put into it, like you're like willing the universe to provide that for you. And I think that is kind of the luck, right? You know what I mean? But it's like when your intentions are going very strong in one direction, you make things happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's definitely lucky things that have happened. Like my initially meeting Ryan via a email because I really liked a surfboard I saw, like, and then he and I like kind of striking a friendship up early, based mostly on sarcasm, I think. He gets it. I think that was really lucky, you know what I mean? But like, I think you take those like lucky moments and you recognize them and then build on them, you know, and that's where hard work trumps that, you know what I mean? So you see the luck you had, and then you need to figure out, all right, so this was a really great thing. How do I like take my efforts and use that to build to the next kind of thing? And I think that's kind of life, man. I think it's like recognizing those lucky experiences and being
Those
able
magical
to
moments
the magic moments.
But there's still a lot of work, and you need to get on it.
Mick Mackey's classic for he's like a super smart guy. Smart, like by no means like book smart man, you know what I mean? Like he's not super well educated. He never went to college, but he's one of the wisest like older surfer shapers I've ever met. Like I feel like every time he's been to New Jersey, like he's just he tells you about life, and he talks about peak moments, right? And that's what life is. It's that like the ebb and flow from peak to peak to peak. And I think you take those peak moments and then you ride that wave, you know? No pun intended.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Like that was a great answer to that question.
Thanks,
Then after that, like as a board, like as a businessman, you've been helping like other up and coming board builders in their like starting their careers and building a community around it in New Jersey and creating community around the world. What would you recommend to younger surfers and board builders, like considering like actual situation, possibilities, and the interesting part of surfing? What would you recommend?
Work your ass off. Don't get too excited too quick. I mean, be excited. Be excited about what you're doing.
It's extremely necessary.
But realize that like it takes a while to get there, you know. And I think that's, you know, we'll be 8 years in this year, and still wonder if I'm successful sometimes. You know what I mean? I'm like, still have to work really hard at it, you know. And I think especially with board builders, guys they shape a couple boards and they get really excited, and that's awesome. And there's some guys that just get it. You know, I've seen a couple guys that like, how many boards do you shape? They're like 6, and I'm like, whoa, like you have a gift. You know what I mean? And there's some guys that really need to work for it. Yeah. And I think it's like, just continue doing it. You know, start making like, if you want to build that like surfboard business, start making boards for your friends, and sell them to them for what you pay, like what it cost you. You know what I mean? If it costs you $300 in materials, like don't be worried about making that money to start. Like what you should be worried about is getting more boards under your belt and getting better at your craft, kind of thing. Yeah. So I think that's like, from a surfboard perspective, that's the way to do it. And I think that's how like the young guys who are really doing it now, that's how they started. You know, they were just like, they surrounded themselves by some guys who could surf well, and they were like, yo, I made this thing, you want to try it? And then it just snowballs into that, you know? Yeah,
exactly. The snowball effect it starts from your passion, like from your love of it, like it'll start rolling, definitely.
And I think for just like from a young surfer perspective, like ride anything, man, have fun. Take the fins out of your board and try it. Ride a boogie board. Boogie boarding is sick. It's so cool. And everyone like kind of hates on it, but like they have a really rad culture that we don't as surfers.
We've shared sessions in mats. We shared, like with you, I haven't surfed with a boogie board, but mats, longboards, finless, everything.
Gliders, short, just
so much fun, and like picking the right day for the right conditions. It's extremely important. So that's super cool. And coming back, like one of the things that when you mentioned, like I think it's very important to not feel like you achieved that already, because like sometimes when like I was reading or listening to something the other day that it was saying like, when you feel like you know everything about one topic, it's gonna turn into losing an interest on it.
Of course.
If you feel you're successful, it's because you're not thriving, you're not excited about this project again. So that thing that you mentioned is what keeps driving you and glide forward in a sense. So that's very important, I think.
Yeah.
To not be complacent. Complacent, is that the right word?
Yeah. It's that balance, though. Yeah. It'll drive yourself crazy trying to work too hard all the time. You know what I mean? Well, we've finally gotten to the point now that like I've gotten to step back a little bit from the glass shop, which has been like I don't glass boards on the daily anymore, which is kind of rad. And I have a really good team in place, and it lets me manage from the outside a little bit and have a bit more balance. You know?
Yeah, I think that's a key to what is happening. Like you've been able to channel the small collaborations into building a team that it works and takes some responsibility out on.
Which is extremely difficult. Yeah. Managing human beings is like, I think it's
not never ending.
I don't think I'm very good at it, you know what I mean? But I try really hard, and I try to take people's feelings into account, and I try to really like work at it, but it's a whole nother challenge, which maybe that's just as exciting, you know what I mean? It's not as like creative as glassing a surfboard, but in some ways, the creativity of that, I think it's like, it can come easy to me sometimes. Not easy, but it's easier.
And the important thing is not like, because it's hard, stop trying.
Yeah.
Like you definitely keep
it's a whole new challenge.
Looking for the other ways to work with it and like build that thing. So that's awesome, and I congratulate you. And we're definitely lucky, dude. Like you've been here for a few weeks in Puerto Rico visiting.
Life's good.
And I'm happy like to share with you guys, because you've been part of my career growing like as a surfer and traveling, and hopefully we keep meeting around the world.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
I do need to say like thank you to my beautiful wife, because I could do none of this without her. I don't give her enough credit because she's so behind. I personally give her credit, but she doesn't get enough credit because she's so behind the scenes. But she's
it's teamwork.
Accounts
definitely.
receivable, accounts payable, financer. You know, she runs all the books. She's paramount.
And you
to our
guys, as a team, take care of all of us as visiting shapers, and it's a whole experience.
She cleans the house when shapers are coming. She cooks us meals. Like,
so
thank
you, Jess. Thank you, Jessica, and Ollie.
And Ollie. He's pretty good. He's pretty tired though.
So thank you, Phil. Dude, it's been an awesome conversation, and see you next time.
For sure.
You.